What's up? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. With me I have some more RPG horror stories, completely unrelated to RPG horror stories, but I'll be waking up extremely early, like 6 in the morning early. And I'm not the kind of person to wake up at 6 in the morning. I don't know what happened to me. I don't know what's different. I don't know what's weird. You know, I have a theory that the older you get, the earlier you wake up. Am I ancient? Am I old now? Am I waking up because I'm old and ancient and decrepit? Anyway, while I'm having that mental existential crisis, let's get some RPG horror stories for today. I made this character because I wanted to be better than other people, slams fist on table. No hyperbole. That's word for word followed by slamming his fist on his desk so loudly it carried over the microphone. This happened a few years ago, thereabouts. I'm an admin on DH2E, Dark Heresy 2nd Edition Discord server. Yeah, I probably should have banned him right there sooner. I dismissed it as an emotional outburst at the time, since he had a lengthy record on the server or not doing anything unusual, but over the course of about 6 months, he changed from a normal player to a problem player. Arguments with the DM and shouting at DM, etc. The other admins and I discussed this, and since he had been a good boy for about a year before things started to south for him, we initially dismissed it as some IRL issues that he might have been struggling with. No one's life is a rose garden, and as long as it doesn't become a repeat issue, it can be forgiven once or twice, alright? As long as you let the player know, hey, you're having a bit of a temper tantrum lately and you've been a little bit of a sourpuss. If you need a break, make sure to take a break. Assuming that somebody is just, they're just probably going through stuff, we're not gonna bother with it. I feel like even if it's some sort of like maybe they're just having a hard time, you should probably still mention something, say, hey, this behavior of yours, I don't know what's going on, I don't know what's happening. If you need a break, go for it. But if you're gonna be continuing with this further, please don't, because it's affecting everybody else and your behavior is sort of disruptive at that point. Even if you want to give somebody a softball as a DM or a server owner or something, a little bit of a heads up to the player, maybe a check-in, you know, a check-in message, be like, hey, you're good, you've been a little bit rough around the edges, just want to make sure you're okay, you know, might go a long way. It wasn't once or twice, it became a consistent and persistent problem with no way to handle him or his outburst effectively presenting itself. One of the in-game outbursts, he made a character with a noble starting background. And if you read this thread's title, you know exactly what happened. A dispute happened over other people being allowed to make command tests rather than taking orders exclusively from him. I made this character because I wanted to be better than other people. Next, he threw a fit over there being a second psyker in the party with the same abilities, proceeds to cite an ability that other psyker does not actually have. Imagine creating a character not because it's like a epic fantasy or a character you always wanted to play or something that seems weird and quirky and fun but you just want to try it out anyway. Maybe it's your first time playing a psyker or noble or whatever. No, you instead decide to make a character that has to be better than everyone else. I feel like you make it a character that was a specific fun reason, but it's because you want to be better with somebody, because you go into that competitive nature in TTRPGs that mainly aren't, at least I think 98% of them, aren't really competitive when it comes to competing with each other. There might be some few niche games out there that are competitive with some PvP or player versus player elements and stuff, but I think most TTRPGs out there are a cooperative storytelling adventure medium and not a competition against the other players to be better than them. Now, incorrect citation. For a list of abilities, he was provided and incorrectly read as we both listed our spells. As that for those unfamiliar, DH2E Psyker learns size skills in a tree format. You have to have some of the same skills unless your specialization is entirely different, and some of the starter trees items are good and cheap. Not having fatigue restoration, the only psychic ability actually shared between the characters, is a silly utility to be without. We tried to discuss this with him, and he claimed he shouldn't sense his desire to be the only psyker in the party from the way he was talking or typing when we were preparing for the mission and deciding which character to bring. In the gentlest way possible, we explained that reality doesn't work like that. He was rapidly becoming more and more unhinged with increasingly detached expectations. I spoke with the GM and also an admin, and we had an unusual hang-ups. We were too biased because one admin was the GM, another admin was the player. I was the other psyker that he was yelling about in the same mission. How should we handle this? We debated for about 2 weeks, during which his flagrant disrespect to the GM convinces another player to leave the server. We came to the initial conclusion to remove him from the mission. Naturally, he protested and insisted that this become an official server issue, which resulted in me going over the server rules and violations and explained to him that the results would, had it been treated like a new arrival with no clean record prior, been 3 times server bans. He complains to the server owner that I'm being tyrannical. Server owner doesn't buy it and he winds up with the ban hammer. He had become so unhinged that he negotiated himself out of being removed from a 4-session mission and into a server ban. I suppose that's a reminder as to why we can't have nice things. Some people push for more, and more, and become personally offended when there isn't more after all that. If things aren't clamped down or immediately at first deviation, they fester and rot. Tolerance and being patient causes more problems that they solved in the end. I do have a couple of points that I want to bring up here, and maybe they're not as important and stuff, but I do feel like it still warrants to still, be able to voice it. Having a system where, let's say for example, you accumulate enough good boy points to have your bad behavior be excused, I don't think that's a good thing to do. I feel like the most fairest thing to do, whether you're playing on a server or whatever, I get it's like, your buddies and stuff, or maybe somebody you know for a year, maybe somebody that's been around for a very, very long time. There should still be a no tolerance policy for bad behavior, especially if it's just unwarranted and keeps repeating over and over again. I understand the guy been around the server for a while, but still, regardless if a new guy does this or an old veteran that's been in the server for a year does this, I feel like shouldn't matter. At the end of the day, rules are rules, and if somebody's being a dickbag to the GMs and the server owner or whoever over and over and over again and becoming a massive disruption to the point where it stops the games from being fun, that I feel like the rules should still stand by without the accumulated good boy points. You don't get to get away with bad behavior because you've been on a server for longer, and I feel like that kind of mentality is just a bad thing to do. So in general, I would support your server just having a no tolerance policy regardless of your status on the server, whether you're new or a legacy player. Second, complaining about the fact that your psycho abilities are kind of similar, it's kind of moot point. It's kind of like complaining, I would assume, that every single wizard is gonna have the shield spell prepared, and that makes me feel not unique. What do you mean? Shield is a very beneficial ability that basically benefits every wizard out there. Or mage armor. God forbid every wizard decides, hey, it might be smart to pick mage armor. I may want to learn mage armor as a spell, because how else are you gonna get any kind of armor and stuff? And then especially with shield, imagine, God forbid, every wizard is just banned from having shield and mage armor because Mr. Important over here, Mr. Important guy, pick those spells first. No, nobody else can grab them. That'd be kind of lame and stupid. For the people watching the video, what are your thoughts about the rules and everything like that? Because I don't know, maybe I'm like out of line, but I feel like honestly, rules, regardless of if somebody been around for the server longest or newest, I feel like it should just be a no tolerance policy. If something happens, gotta be addressed, otherwise it will never be addressed, and letting people get away with it because of good boy points is just, to me, just not a good way to handle it, honestly. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'm gonna get to the next story for today. Problem player ignores my rules, inserts himself in every scene, and makes himself a victim. As my first ever horror story, I've chosen lighter and stuff. It was about half a year ago. I've been DMing for about 7 years by that point, and I've never experienced something like that. It's a 2-act story that was really uncomfortable in the process, so buckle up. Main characters of this story are me, 22 male presenting non-binary, low end of autistic spectrum, high functional, Sun, 24, my girlfriend, Star, 22 or 21, transgender male, low end of autistic spectrum, high functional, Moon, 20 or 21, Star's girlfriend. Gender, sexuality, and autism will be important later. There was a whole friend group involved, but I didn't include them to keep this thing somewhat readable. A little backstory before the main thing. We're living in Russia. Zdrastie. Here it is harder to be open about your gender identity, sexuality, mental health. It's getting better, but at a really slow pace. Me and Star are both open about all the above, despite it being dangerous, and I've suffered the consequences, but it's important for me. My GF was part of a friend group along with Star. They were a decent group, but not without flaws. They met each other during first year of university and stayed until the events of this story, 2.5 to 3 years. That's enough introduction, more context will be added when necessary. To back up the claim for the OP, yeah, actually unironically, being like gay or transgender and stuff actually landed some people in straight up jail. Like unironically, got them arrested. I think some of them went to prison for like 3 years to 5 years. There are even some people out there that still don't know where they are. It's kind of messed up, honestly. It's kind of really messed up, to be honest. They still don't know where they are. Probably in a gulag somewhere, who knows. Sun is proud of me being DM and is very supportive. She tells Star about my love for D&D, and Star wants me to run a one-shot for him. Moon and his brother. Sun asked me about it, and I, being too good of a boyfriend, agreed. At the time, I was neutral about Star, but some of his takes and ideas were strange to me, but I brushed it off in order to make Sun happy. My first rule is, no romance on sex-related things, and Star's character breaks this rule right from the start. He made intersex character with something sex-related in their description. I've brushed it off as like, party will not encounter anyone worth seducing, and things like that. It was my mistake. One thing worth noting about my games, they're combat heavy, and I tell everyone about it before we decide to play together. It was the first game for everyone except Star, so I made a tutorial dungeon TM for them to gradually learn mechanics like checks, initiative, saves, combat, exploration, etc. In the second room, they knocked out orcs, and Star tries to sexually assault an orc. Huh. What is the context behind it? Like, they were just like, okay, cool, we defeated an orc. DM, can I molest this orc? Is that what happened? Or was there like a context and a reason for it? Maybe there's more to it. Maybe I'm just jumping to conclusion, but it just gave me such a mental flashbang just reading that. It was a second red flag, but I ignored it. I said something like, orcs biology doesn't allow you to do it. And the rest of the game was like that. Star tries something sexual, and I tell him that it doesn't work. In the end, I was squeezed like a lemon on lemonade stand. Next day, Sun tells me that Star and others are excited to play again because they love the game. Few days later, Sun asked me to DM for her. Only thing I asked is to find a group because I was busy and haven't got enough time to manage groups. Few days later, Sun found a group with Star and Moon, and also 2 other people. This was the last time I've been DMing for a group with a player that I don't like. I hope you at least had a conversation in a moment, or maybe hindsight 2020, but I hope you had a conversation with a Star specifically. Ask, hey, so why do you want to just sexually assault everything you possibly see? Like, is this one of those things where, does it have a pulse DM? I want to screw it. I want to bone it. I want to bangarang it. I want to do all kinds of dirty, nasty, just hanky-panky all the time. I'm just so horned up. I'm just so bricked up, gooned up, horned up, and I gotta just release it everywhere. Is this one of those things where somebody's just so gooner-fied or gooner-brained? I feel like I'm gonna get my channel in trouble if I keep saying that word specifically, so I guess I'll just end it right there and continue with the story before I get myself in trouble. Act 2. I proposed an idea about a horror campaign with a high mortality and body horror elements. Everyone agrees, and I started preparing the session. Everybody had 2 characters, and I had a backup for everyone as well. Star's character, of course, all were sexualized to the point of other players asking to tone the thing down. Something you probably should have said is, hey, let's have a horror session, no sexual stuff. Like, straight up from very session 0 say, can't do anything sexual related, I'm not doing it, this is my, this is my no-go, basically, I'm not doing this, so make a character that has nothing to do with sexual stuff. I feel like in this situation, a proper session 0 to say, no sexual stuff, it's bad at the table, probably would have been the best thing to do. I'm assuming this maybe want to be in a conversation where you would assume Star would kind of pick up on the fact that you're not into that sort of thing, but with some players, I think it's just easy just to have it out in the open. Maybe now that you know about it, but yeah, session 0 is a very important talk about like the do's and don'ts, especially your own DM expectations. If you as a DM don't want to deal with things like romance or sexual stuff, you don't have to. Just outline it at the table that you're not gonna have it at the table, and that's that. We began on a train that explodes, and Star's character dies in the first scene, along with Sun's because of failed saves. Whoa, wait, died immediately? Hold on. Okay, I understand you have a problem player going on here, but to kill off somebody immediately because of a failed save, how brutal of a hardcore game is this gonna be? Where basically, I mean, you did say you made backups for people and everything, but still, to die from just the very first session on a bad saving throw, insane. I think there's might be more going on here than just a overly gooned out sexualized player and stuff, but I digress. Everyone is scared. Everything goes according to plan. Few minutes pass near a broken train, and the only place to go is a factory. They go to the factory and door closes behind them. They're exploring the factory, trying not to die to mutants and machines. Then they found a scientist's protective gear and went to the room that was looking like a standard village with a tavern. It was a village with a portal from a factory for workers to relax and rest between shifts. They were using their gear as a disguise so they can explore the village. When they understood that no one cares about them not being scientists, they took off their gear. Except Star. He's running to every possible NPC to ask about safety for this place and can take off his gear for 30 minutes. Every other player accepts their fate, even Star, who said that he didn't want to lose his character. He agreed to play in a very deadly campaign. About an hour later, Sun had her first ever fight in D&D. By that time, Star tried to insert himself in every possible encounter, dialogue, role-playing scene, etc. I've asked everyone to be quiet because Sun doesn't know what to do and quite nervous. I started to explain her what she can do, what is an action, what is a bonus action, and how she can interact with her enemy. When Sun asked me a question about one of her abilities, Star interrupted her and started answering. He didn't even let her finish her question and started answering not only to incomplete question, but he wasn't even right. It was a last straw for me. That's where my autism comes to play. Can't fully control intensity of my expressions. I snapped and very loudly and slightly aggressively said Star to shut up. Immediately I've apologized. Rest of the game was smooth, but with a bit of tension that I didn't realize. After the game, me and Sun went home. Oh, okay. Well, we got a lot more things going on here. Not only is your player being interrupted, but also, are you putting Sun? I think your Sun is your girlfriend, right? Are you putting Sun into a campaign with the very first hardcore campaign they ever played, and you have to explain to them about main action, bonus action? Have you considered, maybe like a tutorial dungeon like you did for Star? Potentially, but throwing them specifically into a horror campaign, and especially a very deadly one at that, and they don't even know about the main action, bonus action stuff, that could be a very, very hardcore. Like, I know that's not the point of the story and everything, but I'm just pointing out some stuff that is definitely a bit of a problem to me, unless I'm misreading things completely and entirely. That does seem like there's a little bit of an issue with your DMing style, or I understand what you're saying and I agree with you. Star should not be interrupting you in between and trying to answer questions when you're there as a DM to answer the questions for the player. But also, maybe in the future, you might consider, if you have a new player, do not throw them into a insta-death campaign or really hardcore death, like perma-death run campaign, like with a hardcore rule set where a single death saving throw can just kill off a character immediately. I feel like maybe put them on a training wheel dungeon or something just to kind of get them used to the mechanics. It has nothing to do with the story and stuff. I'm just saying for the future and everything. Maybe I'm just misreading it. I don't know, guys. Act 3. 90% of the trigger warning are here. A few days later, Sun shows me her group chat with Star saying various things about me. Well, let's start. He said that I screamed at him and I didn't apologize after because I'm a transphobe. After Sun telling him that it's not true, he said that every cis male is a transphobe. She reminded him that I'm not cis, but he said that I'm too masculine looking to be non-binary and I have a girlfriend. That makes me straight. Yeah, my favorite phobia from Community. Whoa, okay. I feel like there's a lot more going on with Star than just specifically the problem play behavior. I feel like their attitude towards people because of their immutable traits? I guess the immutable traits might be the word I'm going for. I guess traits that they can't really help with. I don't know if it's being morbidly obvious and stuff, but like, I am straight, cis. I like women, I like girls, I like succubi women. I want succubi women to maybe step on me sometimes and maybe give me hugs and tell me I'm a good boy and that everything is gonna be okay and tomorrow's nightmares will end. But to assume that I'm gonna be a transphobe because I am straight and I like girls and stuff is a really weird stretch. It's like looking at somebody saying, ooh, I know you're gonna be somebody that hates tieflings. It's like, what does that mean? What do you mean by that? What do you mean you're gonna assume that I hate tieflings? I'm not really into like political, social, or as I like to call it, modern day isms on the world of state of affairs and stuff, but to assume somebody is something because of just how they are, how they present themselves is kind of strange and weird and bigoted. Bigoted, probably the best word to assume. I don't know, I feel like Star has more issues going on than just the problem play behavior. The fact that it's jumping on your throat and assuming that you're something that you're not just because you happen to have a girlfriend and you happen to be presenting as male is just for Star to assume that you are a bigot because of your traits that you just can't really help because you are as you are is kind of bigoted of them as well. I don't know, bigot, prejudice, I don't know what the word here. Something is definitely not right with Star's like perspective on things. I get OP had a shouty outburst at you, but you kind of deserved it as well because you constantly jumping in. It's like, ooh, I know how to answer it before the player is even able to like ask the questions or finish the question properly, and you're giving wrong answers the whole time instead of just letting the DM help the player with the situation. But to assume something like that out of person is just crazy. Despite Sun's effort, everyone sides with Star and my girlfriend ends up technically excluded from the group. I've tried to clarify the situation in the D&D group chat, but I was met with the same argument. While I was trying to explain that Star's argument were wrong, I was excluded from the chat and banned. The worst thing is that he tried to use social pressure to make me apologize. I did it at the table, by writing it in a group chat, not via DM. I mean, if you can't have a regular conversation and can't talk out icon differences because a little physical ban you from being able to explain yourself, be able to have a conversation, then I feel like it's just not even worth dealing with these kind of people. Or somebody that specifically plays on like them versus us, you're either on my side or you're on their side, when instead it's completely something else entirely. I guess the best lesson to learn here is when a player shows the true colors, I'll believe them. If you see the trail of red flags, do take it seriously and don't ignore it and just choose for yourself. Don't want to deal with it later with a big blowout and stuff. No, I'm just gonna not have this player with me in future and just focus on people that I do like to spend time with. And with that, that's gonna be all our stories for today. I want to thank you very much for watching, and thanks so much for being here. If you like what I do, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. Also, if the RPG Horror Stories ever goes down, or if you want to submit your own personalized horror story, email is down in the description below. I'll see you again in more Tales Tomorrow. Bye-bye.